Hello and welcome as the XSLR Championship returns for a new season and a new home here at Slow Motion Broadcasting. And what a season we have got in store for you. The 410 Wind Sprint car is what we'll be using for the dirt oval section of the championship, the Silver Crown for the ovals, and the VW Beetle Rallycross car for the dirt road portion of the championship. But tonight we kickstart the season with 4 weeks of road racing with the Aston Martin GT4 here live from the Nurburgring. We're going to be taking in the course of Long Beach next week, then Donington Park on the Grand Prix layout before we round things out at the iconic Laguna Seca for this portion of the championship. It's going to be another absolute cracker. We saw it last season, and we're going to have a brand new champion crowned because last season's champion is Cam Peterson. He has not returned to defend his crown. There's one thing for certain, we will see a new person crown the championship all the way on the 20th of November in the final round at Wild Horse Pass. I'm Tim Cox. As always, we've got Jonathon Grabowski in the production booth working the magic in the cameras. But right now, I'm joined by Randall McGrew. Randall, welcome along to XSLR. It's a championship full of drama, excitement, thrills and spills right from the minute go to the very end. And I'm sure you're going to absolutely love it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what we have in store for us tonight. I love the GT4s. I really like the Aston Martin myself, and this track, it just feels really at home here. So it should be a good race.
I'm sure it's going to be an absolute cracker once again. Just take you through the format that we've got for the road racing section of the championship. Obviously, practice currently underway at the moment before we head across into qualifying. Drivers have 3 laps to set their fastest possible time. And then it is 20 laps of racing. It's going to be drama, I'm sure. And a bit of a small grid here today for the season opener. But I understand we've got plenty of drivers coming up. There still are spaces potentially available. Just drop into the chat and we'll pick up from there. If you're interested in joining the league, if it takes your fancy. We've got Josh Clogg heading up the timing sheets with a 2:02.8, and there's a really quick time against the rest of the pack with Ham, Kia, Irwin and Soren all close together with one another. Chetaranek, he's a little bit off the pace at the moment, but he's got too many laps under his belt, so those times will come down. And Schenkler let's set a time. He's had them all deleted so far, and those track limits can prove a little bit of pesky around here, can't they?
Yeah, that's right. Especially in the arena section, it can be really tight as you're coming out. If you don't get the line just right, it's easy to run wide and pick up 1x.
It's Mercedes Arena. It's one of the most iconic parts of this circuit, and great view you can have from the grandstand of plenty of action that's come before us, both in real life and in the sim racing world as well. As there is a Jake Cam, currently second. Interesting to see how he gets on this season. Hopefully, high hopes for him of how he's going to get on. I know they're speaking to the guys in the XSLR Discord that they've been all really excited to get the season kick-started and well underway. So that's catching a little bit of the gravel there. Now, for me, Randall, the trickiest part of this circuit, I always find, is the chicane at the end, because I could never seem to quite get it right. What other sort of parts of the circuit are going to prove a bit more treacherous or challenging for our drivers? And equally, where are going to be the best overtaking opportunities around here?
Turn 1's definitely going to be your best overtaking opportunity. You got a long straightaway to slipstream the car in front of you and set up for an inside move. It's a very tight corner. If you are on the outside of turn 1, you are set up for the inside for the arena, so there could be a lot of very close door-to-door battling going through that first sector of the track. The chicane is very tricky, but fortunately for these drivers, they're not using the F1 chicane, so it's a little bit easier to navigate than the much more severe F1 chicane. There's also a good Overtaking opportunity going into the Dunlop hairpin in the second sector of the track, as you have a pretty decent run up to it, and it's a very tight right-handed hairpin.
It is. It's another one of the iconic parts of the track for me, where you can get an absolutely brilliant view if you're a spectator of heading through the forward curb down towards the Dunlop, where you double back on yourself before you head up towards the Schumacher S's, and it's a real great spectacle. Seen plenty of great racing over the years through there. I'm sure we're going to see plenty of that today. Let's even field, of course, the single make car, as it always is throughout each section of the championship, so there's no BOP that you need to worry about at all. It's all about man and machine and being good across every single discipline in iRacing. We'll find out who's been crowned our champion, as mentioned, season finale. All the what seems so far away, but it'll come around really quick, all the way on the 20th of November at Wild Horse Pass, where, well, we saw last season the the dirt road section really brought some drama. Likewise, the dirt ovals as well with the midgets. That was epic fun, great fun for the drivers, great fun for neutrals watching home, and obviously us in the commentary booth. It's going to provide plenty of excitement. That's coming up from the second stage of the season. That kick starts on the 7th of August. As there is Josh Clogg, your current fastest driver in practice. However, that could well change during qualifying. Now, just looking at the sort of time sheets, I think it's that midfield battle, really. It's going to be a fight over who's going to come in second place. I'm not sure about yourself, Randall, but that's from practice, which gives us a bit of an idea, but it doesn't always give us a true representation of exactly how things are going to pan out.
There's a lot of slipstreaming available on this track, so it could be hard for the leader to break away. We haven't seen a lap time yet from Robert Schwenkler, so he might still have something good to put down on the table to compete with Mr. Clogg.
Yes, we see Ham there, just out into the gravel, out of Dunlop, and through across the curve. You want to try and take as much of those as possible through the Schumacher S's, and it's into Michelin. You take a lot of curb on the inside there for a much tighter line. It's all about compromising the exits a little bit. Make sure you get the best part of the exit out of Varsteiner, and then open up the taps through the right-hand king that is Advan, and then all the way up to the chicane. As Randall mentioned, we're using the Endurance Championship chicane here. A lot more open, a lot more free-flowing, much easier, so you can really bounce it across the curbs. Then use the curves on the outside there, like Ham has done, just to bring the car back in line for the never-ending final corner on the Coca-Cola curve. Just want to ease onto the throttle. Don't get on too early, because that forces you wide and then really compromises Randall. That run all the way down to turn 1. New improved time for Clogg there to a 2.8, but just look at, and also from Schwenkler getting straight into the mix. Into second, that's all he needed. The one lap, the one time to get right in amongst the cat amongst the pigeons, as we'd say in the UK.
That's right. I expect once you get some more heat in those tires, that time will come down a little bit more.
We haven't got long left of practice. Around about a minute left. We're going to head across into qualifying. You mentioned 3 laps available to drivers. So we've got 10 minutes to complete that. Plenty of time to squeeze those in, including their out laps. So if the lap time's obviously just over the 2-minute mark, so they won't be taking it too hard to keep plenty of life in the tyres and not build up those pressures too high. We all need to not have the most pedestrian of opening laps. As there is Schwenkler, man who only needed one time to get himself up into second in practice, but 30 seconds left. We're heading across the qualifying. As mentioned, 20 laps of racing here. It'll be fraught and frantic. We're going to find out who's going to be crowned our winner here in round 1 of the XSLR Championship. Who's going to kickstart their season in the best possible fashion. That's Kevin Irwin heading down to the Mercedes arena, and he knows practice is done and dusted, and that's what happens when you hit the barrier at full throttle. Almost a little bit reminiscent of what we saw last weekend in the Formula 1 there with Granu Zhou.
It was about 180 degrees difference.
Yeah, it wasn't far off, was it? It was as impersonations go, it wasn't a bad attempt. We're heading across into qualifying now. The session's just transitioning as we speak, and then we're going to see our drivers head out and we find out who's going to get the first pole position of the season. There's Schenkler. He's out early doors, looking to really take the fight to Clog and try and snatch that pole position away from him. If there's anything to go by what we've seen in practice, now, Brandon, when you're on your out lap, what's the best possible way to get the car in, into the right temperature window to make sure that you get the best possible result in qualifying?
Well, some people like to weave. I do that a little bit myself, but I found accelerating and braking really builds more heat into the tires a little bit more consistently than weaving does. But you want to take it easy, but not too easy, because you do want to get some friction going to really heat up those tires. You want to make sure you get your brakes up to temperature as well. Your first lap is probably going to be your slowest lap, and I suspect that the second lap will probably be the magic lap. If they push too hard on the second lap, it kind of ruins the third lap. So on your second lap, if you mess it up early, it's best to kind of back out of it so you can kind of conserve your tires, keep the heat in them, but don't overdo it. And then try again on that last lap.
So maybe, do you think, would it be better for the drivers potentially to obviously do their first flying lap, come back in, obviously get across the line, pull the car up, tow to the pits, and then go again for that second lap? Obviously, they'll allow to have less fuel on board as well to negotiate qualifying. So obviously, what you're saying on those tyre temperatures and the degradation as well, do you think that's maybe going to get their best opportunities of 2 bites of the apple?
No, I don't think so. Since they only have 3 laps, I think taking a second out lap I don't think it would really give them the opportunity they need. It kind of really need 2 laps to get the temperatures built up. So they would only really be on the second lap if they were to pit and take tires.
So the driver's just heading out, first few heading across the line and out onto their first time lap. That is Mike Sorum in the kind of pink livery sheer salon car. He ran all last season, same livery. Of course, different cars as always in the championship. Reddick, he's out on track 2, taking his first flying lap. Likewise, Schrenkler too. Now let's talk about the marvellous sponsors we have for this series. Again, returning. Just mentioning and seeing him on screen right now, Chet Duranic. The Chet Duranic Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. It's a non-profit, volunteer-fueled organisation dedicated to finding cures for Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis and improving the quality of life of children and adults affected by these diseases. You can find more about that great charity and all the great work that they do by heading across to the Crohn's Colitis Foundation.org. Saw him setting the initial pace there. You can see across the bottom of the screens right now the drivers' names with different colour bars next to them. If it's pink, that means they've gone the fastest of anyone in that sector. If it's yellow, they've gone slower than their previous personal best. If it's green, that means that they've gone faster than their personal best, but it's not quite good enough to be the best of anyone. And we're going to see as the drivers are about halfway around the first of them are right now. We're on board with Sorum. He's actually just a bit further around. Just trying to hook the car up out of Warsteiner. Open up the taps as we head up towards Advan now. Absolute full throttle, full commitment through that right-hander. We head down to the NGK chicane. Just picking his braking spots. The car in over the curves before the final corner. That is Coca-Cola. Just finding those curves on the outside to try and get the car turned in. Waiting patiently before applying maximum throttle. Maybe take a little bit more curve there, could Sorum, but he's going to come across the line. He's going to be our first time that's going to be set while I say that, but he's had his time deleted for an off-track infringement on that first lap, so he's going to definitely have to go again. Schenkler, there you go. That is your benchmark here, 204.035. First time on the board. Equally as well, Mike Sorum and Juranek both having their times deleted on their opening laps. And sometimes Randall, it's almost better to try and get that banker lap in first before pushing again.
That's right. This is a very technical track, so there's lots of ways to get it wrong. So having a first lap that's very tidy and maybe not the fastest, but gives you a nice buffer, gives you an opportunity to push to find better.
As there is Kia just getting a time on the board, 2:06.1. A banker lap in, Jake Ham going half a second off Schenkler with a 2:04.5. Definitely a bit of time for improvement from Ham there. I expect to see him take the fight to Schenkler.
Josh
As
Clog about to cross the line. He had the first sector fastest of all.
he did, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, although he's got 2 yellow sectors to his name, doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't show just how much he's gone slower. And, well, there you go. Good enough for pole position. Original pole going to Clog in these early stages. Well, say early stages already. Just over halfway through qualifying. Find out who's as drivers head round again. Schrinkler, he's not far off completing his second fine lap. See him improving. He needs to find 7/10 just to equal Clog. It's a big ask, isn't it, really, Randall?
It really is. It seems like Josh Clog has that first turn in the Mercedes arena really figured out, and that's where he's gaining most of his time.
There is Schrinkler, Browning Coca-Cola. He's wrestling with the car. Saw him. It's time on the board. Good enough for 5th place for now. As we see Schrinkler come across the line. Is that an improvement? Well,
It's about 2/10 faster.
it is, isn't it? That's not a bad lap, but still not quite good enough for pole for now. I mentioned 3 laps for the driver, so he's got a chance to go again, but are his tyres going to be past their best potential, Randall?
It really depends on how he drove that second lap. If he overdrove it, he may be finding issues with grip, but if he kept it nice and tidy the entire lap, he could probably be good to improve again. He had a very good run out of the final corner, which really sets up your next lap. Can be make or break for you.
He's coming across the line. That's Jake Ham. Probably 3rd. He's going to remain there. A little bit off the pace this time. Maybe you would have expected better things from him, but still 2nd row of the grid. Still got a chance to mount an attack and across 20 laps. It's going to be about 40 minutes of racing. This will provide plenty of ample opportunities for our drivers to make the moves. Just, you can hear him just trying to feather the throttle, trying to get the power down, just maybe struggling a little bit during qualifying. And just having a look in terms of track temperatures, we're currently at 19 degrees Celsius. I'm trying to think what that is in Fahrenheit right now for you, but it's a cool track temperatures, ambient temperature 18 degrees. There we go, 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Graphic just popping up on the right hand side. We've also got, low wind speeds as well, so that's going to provide a nice stable surface between the track temperatures and the lack of wind out there for our drivers.
Yeah, whenever you have these low track temperatures, it's really good for setting your personal best lap times, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some guys set some overall personal bests during this qualifying session with low fuel and a nice cool track.
So there we saw him done and dusted with qualifying. He's got 3 laps in. So good enough for 4. Schrenkler as well. He's looking to improve on 2nd place. You can see anyone else moving through these time sheets the last time. Duranic hasn't unfortunately managed to get a time. He's had all 3 of them deleted. So it looks like he's going to start from the back of the field. Unfortunately for the season opener. As wow, there you go. Bit of rally crossing, and that's the frustration of qualifying coming out in Duranic there. As Clog is still on the flyer. Likewise is Ham, who you can see on the screen right now. Erwin and Kia. Ham's going to be the first to cross the line. Don't think he's able to massively improve. Well, not massively, but good enough to snatch 2nd place in that front row on the grid slot away from Schrenkler. 2:03.4 for him. Kia likewise bringing up to 4th. As here comes Kevin Irwin across the line. What can he do? Can he move up from 6th place? Let's find out. Well, no improvement from him, so he's going to remain where he is. And That looks like we're done and dusted in qualifying.
Josh Clogg able to break through the 203 barrier into the high 202s.
That's an impressive lap from Clogg, isn't it?
That's very impressive, yes.
So let's head across into the race. As mentioned, 20 laps we've got here for you today at the Nurburgring in Germany on the track. Used to be known as the Südschleife, of course, the Nordschleife, more famous part of the circuit. The Südschleife went on to make up the Grand Prix layout. But here's your first official grid of the season. Clogg, he is on the front row, taking that first pole position of the season. He's got Jake Ham joining him for company. Second row is Robert Schrenkler and James Kia. Third row, we've got Silverman and Irwin. And then Chet Duranek. He's going to round out your grid. Unfortunately, unable to make up, but had all this time deleted during qualifying. So that's why he's starting at the back. Still there. Can actually prove to be handy because you can see everything that's happening in front of you, Randall.
That's right. Robert Schwenkler should be in a good position here following the leader into turn 1. He'll be set up for the inside and maybe be able to take second away for that first turn. And it looks like we have a standing start here.
We do indeed. Something a little bit alien to our American fans and drivers alike. You don't tend to see on your side of the pond. We're more accustomed to it in Europe, and definitely proved a bit of a challenge last season in the Lotus 79s with trying to get those cars in the way. Of course, these cars are a lot more stable, have traction control as well, less power. So our drivers will have less of an issue getting them off the line compared to what we saw last season. But here come the lights. Let's get ready to go racing in Germany for the first time. And oh, Clogg, he's jumped the start there. He's going to incur a penalty. Draw already for this season, and we haven't even got started. But, wow, look at Ham up the inside, streaming down into Mercedes for the first time, leading the pack, getting the whole shot. And already Clogg coming under a world of pressure. She's got Schrenkler and Kia right on his tail. And as well, he's got to think about that penalty as too, Randall.
That's right. It's kind of a gamble whether you come in immediately or let it run for a couple laps and serve it at the last possible minute. Either way, you're giving up the same amount of time.
It's an interesting concept, isn't it? Like you say, do you come in early and then the field is still bunched together and just sort of Clogg's caliber, you can close up to the back of them, relatively quickly, or wait until they've spaced out a little bit. I mean, just have 3 laps in which to serve said penalty, so I'd imagine probably going to leave it as late as possible. Ham leads from Clogg. Schrenkler is occupying that last podium position for the moment. Kia, Sorum, Irwin, and Duranek, your order. Bar our top 2. Currently in their starting order soon and kicking up the dirt there. You can see just how much Ham is pushing right now. Having a bit of a twitch out of the Schumacher S's as he comes down into Michelin. And now Clogg wants that place back from Ham and right round the outside. You can't overtake Frank Reinsteiner like that. But Clogg says, hold my beer, watch this, and Ham loses not 1, but he's lost 2 places. Just Schenkler says, thank you very much. I'll have a bit of that, and sneaks through the ever opportunistic Robert Schrenkler. A great move from him, following Clogg through as we head through the chicane for the first time tonight in racing conditions, mounting the curb, our top 2 there. Ooh, and I think as well, I'll tell you what, Jake Hammer, he's got to slow down, I reckon, because he's dropped right off the pace.
That's what I thought too whenever he came out of the Schumacher S. He was a little bit of the gravel, probably took too much liberty with that curb and got to slow down. Was trying to serve it. It's very difficult to serve on some of these tracks with tighter corners because as you go through the corner, sometimes that slowdown will increase instead of decrease, even if you're taking it easy.
Amen to that. I've certainly been there, and you sound like a man of experience who's endured that pain, Randall. Definitely. And oh no, it's going from bad to worse right now for Ham. In the grass once again. It's saying the groundkeeper's a bit of a job around the Nurburgring, but desperate to try and find his way past Irwin, the number 7 in front of him. And his best, he's going to be brave. His best opportunity is going to come down into Valvey on the brakes. Elects to sit behind him, and look how close Ham is right now up the inside of Ford, and that's going to be the move done. But get the feeling that maybe Erwin was just a little bit compliant with that move, allow the faster Ham through, and then follow him and utilize him to catch up onto the back of the pack.
It's a good strategy. I think the best thing for Jake to do whenever he had the issue, as he goes around by himself.
Oh. Jake Ham, it's what looked like an absolutely epic start. It couldn't have gone any better. And it's all falling apart for him as there's Durenic. Oh no! It nearly hits him and Durenic's into the wall. Drama here and he's out of control across. Just about manages to collect it there. With the innocent bystander just coming through. And Ham, wow, that was a bit of an interesting maneuver there from Ham. He saw onto the brakes. Randall, just a bit of ambition over adhesion there, and desperate to try and chase down Sorum, and undoes it all himself. As wow, Durenic practically drifting. No, sorry, that was Shankler even. Mistaken livery, drifting it out of Coca-Cola there.
I think what happened to Jake is he went to get on the throttle and had a little bit too much lock still in the wheel. Managed to get into the traction control, and then that gave the front end all kinds of grip and it just sent him around. I think Jake's best strategy now is just to sit back, take a couple deep breaths, calm down, and try not to let these mistakes turn into more mistakes.
He is into the pits already. I wonder if he's a bit of damage there. I'm trying to look at his car. Definitely not a happy gentleman right now. There we go. He's going to pull into his pit box. And you're going to see the car's going up on track for new tyres. No, he's not. Just having a bit of damage repaired there. What are we going to see? A last to first challenge here from Ham. Well, it remains to be seen. We'll keep you up to date with when he comes out of the pits and how he's progressing. But Clog, the early pace setter.
We should be seeing him coming.
Sorry.
We should be seeing Josh coming into the pits at the end of this lap to serve that penalty.
Well, he's cutting it really fine and needs to be careful as well, because depending on where his pit box is, he could well end up crossing the start-finish line, pushing him onto another lap, and could see a disqualification if he's not too careful. He definitely needs to come in on this lap, otherwise he will fall foul of that. Number 13, unlucky for some. Ham is out of his pit box and he is off, and he is up against it because he is over a minute behind Durenic right now at this early stage, but does have the bulk of the race to go. 17 laps.
Josh Clog not pitting this lap to serve that penalty, so I wonder if the stewards intervened and cleared that penalty for him.
Well, I'm now starting to question myself. He definitely had a lunge, and maybe he got away with it, and it wasn't quite enough to trigger that he'd had a false start. Because, like you say, he surely should have been in by now. We'll keep an eye and see what happens when he comes around next time by the pit entrance. But at the moment, Clog just desperately trying to eke out as big a lead as possible. So just have to serve that penalty then. It's the least amount of implications for him, but Shankler is keeping him steady. Gap neutralised at around about 1.1 seconds between our lead two here in the last podium place. Sorum, Erwin, Durenic and Ham rounding out your field here. And this is going to be an interesting result here for the first round of XSLR, definitely, Randall.
Yeah, that's right. The iRacing penalty mechanics are a mystery wrapped in an enigma. If you ask 10 different people how they work, you'll get 10 different answers. So we're about to find out, I believe, this lap.
You're not wrong there whatsoever, and Clog's just pulling out a couple of attempts over Shankler. They're through the Schumacher S's. You see how Clog's just bouncing it across the curbs there. These two titans of the series fighting it out of who's going to take that top step on the podium. This is all assuming that Clog didn't pick up that penalty like we saw. Maybe just didn't quite move enough out of his pit box to incur it.
Clog was blown away at first, but Schmeckler's starting to reel him back in slowly, so maybe we'll have a race on our hands.
Yeah, you could definitely see where the two drivers are stronger at different parts of the circuit. And as Clog carries on, yet again, that says to me he didn't move enough to trigger the penalty occurring for a false start. Well, I think all of his Christmases have come at once, because he is one very, very lucky boy right now, and fastest lap of the race as well to boot so far, 2:03.4. Wow, how he has got away with that one, I genuinely do not know.
You're right. It's Christmas in July in the Clog household, and now he's going to try to run away with this race.
Probably even Thanksgiving, of course, thrown in for good measures too as well. Maybe even the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, all of them have visited clearly the Clog household. Let's just say Schrinkler keeping him keen, and that gap it's closing up in certain parts. You can see through this section now. This is where Schrinkler is definitely stronger than Clog. Down through Ford, Dunlop, the Schumacher S's, and up to Michelin. He manages to eke out into the gap between himself and Clog.
He's right at the edge of effectiveness for the slipstream. You can get a slipstream up to about 1.5 seconds in these cars, but they're really most effective under 1.25 seconds. So as long as he's hovering at this point, he can close it just a little bit. He can find himself right on the bumper of Josh Clog.
5 laps completed here in Germany. Clog leads for Schrinkler here. Sorum, Erwin, Duranic. Ham is closing in though. He's reducing that gap and seeing some incredible pace. Pace that's in line with our lead two of Clog and Schrinkler. There is Ham. And when he came out of the pits, the gap was over a minute. Just to Duranic alone. That gap has come right down. He stands to about 45 seconds. So Ham is pushing incredibly hard right now. You can see just the last lap alone, 10 seconds quicker than Duranic.
Sixth place is definitely possible for Jake Ham. Fifth might be out of reach unless somebody makes a mistake.
Well, I mean, based on the last laps, Erwin did a 2:06.6. Just come across the line there. Where versus Ham did a 2:03.95. It's about 2.5 seconds difference there. Now we've got around about 14 laps left. Yeah, initially I sort of started thinking, well, no, I reckon Jake Ham can catch that up. He can make that gap up, but well, I like you say, a bit of luck and blind faith. I'm not sure Ham's going to be able to do it. I mean, he's given it a good old go. He's pushing the car to neat qualification pace and going quicker, in fact, than our lead two. This is going to be fascinating to see just how much he can close up, or if he's going to come up onto the back of Erwin, and then maybe just would have needed 1 or 2 more laps just to surpass and get back up ahead of Erwin.
And if there's a mistake out of Erwin or even Sorum or Kier, they could find themselves falling into the clutches of Jake Ham towards the end of this race. Also, you have to take into consideration how long it will take Jake Ham to get around Chet Duranic whenever he catches him.
This is very true. It's the late great Murray Walker, a brilliant motorsport broadcaster, commentator and presenter in the UK. Used to say, catching them was one thing, getting past them is something completely different altogether. And Ham, can he catch them? Well, yes, but can he get past them? Well, that remains to be seen. Around about 14 laps in which to find out, but I'd say, well, I am completely fascinated and enthralled by this battle for the lead, and Schrinkler has taken a big chunk out of Clog in these last couple of laps. The gap down to 7/10. Clog starting to feel the pressure from Schrinkler looming in his mirrors. I'd say, well, even if he's got it mapped, if he's a little bit crafty about this Schrinkler, he might give a little bit of a flash of the lights to Clog. So let him know he's there. Just try and distract him.
That's right. You want to let them know you're coming. You want them to start hearing that suspenseful music in their head to know that somebody is faster than them behind them.
I've just got going through my head the iconic, you know, Jaws music, the Schrenkler looming in on Clog. And I tell you what, another thing I love about these cars is the Mercedes AMG power units that obviously Aston Martin now use. Exactly the same engine that you get in the Mercedes AMG GT, that's GT4 that you have with on iRacing, the same car class as these, or Grand Sport as it's known on your side of the pond as well. Seeing the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. But it's just got such a dirty grumble, that 50 cal soundtrack, which AMG just seemed to have perfect so well, Randall.
It is music to your ears, being in one of these cars, or even better, in real life, as one goes flying past you, that deep rumble of the Mercedes engine and the straight cut gears as they fly past.
Of course, being American, you know, the land of the V8 motor, and these cars are powered by them, of course, turbocharged in this day and age due to emissions and efficiencies. You see Clog just eking out a couple of tenths of Schrenkler, really ebbing and flowing between these two, the gap. As you say, Schrenkler is well within slipstream range. You're going to watch that gap shrink on the race down to turn 1, 203.3 from Clog, and 203.4 from Schrenkler. But look into the braking zone. Schrenkler seems to be so much more confident, but just losing the rear end a little bit and just undoing all of his hard work in the blink of an eye there, Randall.
That's right. Well, he's in a good position to learn from Josh Clog, who is faster than him in practice and in qualifying, to see maybe where he can improve. Also study him to see where he's faster and be able to pounce whenever Josh Clog possibly makes a mistake.
Now, let's not forget as well that the drivers are limited in terms of their fuel capacity within these cars. So fuel limit is set to 50%, which does enforce a pit stop for them. Now, we saw it last season in the Lotus 79 that it's a little bit treacherous, a little bit tricky, and we can really start to tell, Randall, that those drivers that have and those that haven't practiced their pit entry, because you can lose and gain so much time just from that procedure alone.
That's right. I always practice my pit entries. I always tell everybody to practice their pit entries, especially at tracks like this where you have a tricky pit entry that you can attack very hard and gain some time.
It is, like I say, it is a tricky pit entry, isn't it? Because you see Sorum there. Because you've got that wall looming on the outside, and one slight mistake and bang, you're straight into it, and it can be potentially damaged suspension.
It is in the last corner of the track, which is already pretty tight, but it's much tighter. So you have to use a completely different brake mark. It's narrower. You can't widen it out nearly as much because of that wall that you mentioned. You still have to attack it because the pit limiter line isn't until after that turn.
It's certainly not an easy pit entry like you have at, say, Road America, where it's nice and wide and open, and you're coming off the straightaway. It's, you know, it's nice and visible. It's definitely one of the more challenging pit entries in world motorsport, and definitely something a bit of akin to European tracks compared to what you see in their American counterparts. So just looking at that gap and those lap times yet again between our top two, it's like 600ths of a second separating the pair of them, Clog and Schrenkler. Schrenkler's managed to take another chunk of time out of Clog. Ran about 4 tenths across those last couple of laps. Really pedal to the metal, as there comes Irwin in for his pit stop, nearly going exactly halfway, lap 9 out of 20. Not electing to take tyres. Now, within the GT4s, there is no time penalty taking tyres as well as fuel, because it changes them both at the same time. But just looking at the amount of fuel that these guys are putting in here, if they do go for tyres, it's actually going to extend their pit stops potentially. They're going to be stationary for even longer.
That's right. You need to take about 2/3 of a tank of fuel to make up for the tire change. So they will definitely be taking a penalty if they take tires. But with the race this short, the tires should be good enough for 40 minutes easily.
I know one of my friends who takes part in an endurance league. He was unaware of this within GT4s, and he, normally being a GT3 and an LMP2 driver, and he did the race all by himself. It was around the Red Bull ring, and he finished the race with, I think, about after 4 hours on exactly the same tyres with the front right. I think it was down to about 3% in the left and the middle. As we see a new fastest lap of the race there for Schrinkler. 2:03 dead, exactly. Down not to the tenths, not to the hundredths, but down to the thousandths of a second. Amazing stuff from Schrinkler. He would never be able to do that again if he tried.
And now that these cars are in the pit window, you have to wonder how much is Schwenkler backing off and saving fuel at the end of some of these straights. He might be able to overtake him in the pit stop.
Would that be your strategy and your move, Randall? Just to fuel save as much as you can behind Clog? Not intentionally, not overtake him. Just sit there, loom in his mirrors to either force him into a mistake, but all while you're doing that, you're saving fuel.
That's a very good strategy. It's one that I do employ sometimes, especially if I'm behind a car like behind a driver like Josh Clog, who I know has good pace and can maintain that pace. I'll just use his slipstream to pull me along, let off a little bit early, try to save some fuel, and hopefully get him in that pit stop. And then it's full out from then on.
So we have reached the halfway stage of the first round. The XSLR Championship. Clog leads with Schrinkler, Kier, Sorum, Irwin, Duranic and Ham. Ham has managed to close that gap. Over a minute down to 16 seconds between himself and Duranic. So he's flying and pushing to the max is Jake Ham here in Germany, trying to recover from, well, cost him so dear. We ride on board with Ham right now. A gap between Clog and Schrinkler, shrinking again. I tell you what, he's getting it down as low as 6 tenths, but it ebbs and flows and extends out again. So I think your idea of where he's fuel saving, Randall, I think that is definitely the case. Or at least it seems to be that way. Or is Schrinkler maybe just lacking that definitive cutting edge to get the move done on Clog?
I think at this point he's probably saving fuel. He hasn't been close enough to really set up a move, but I don't think he's afraid to do one.
We're on board with him. Let's have a bit of a listen in and see if we can hear what he's doing to the throttle and he's fuel saving into the bigger braking areas. The next one I think is going to be Michelin, isn't it?
Clog is a little bit wide there.
You see where Schrinkler's definitely a lot more confident and aggressive over the curves. Here we go, to run down to Michelin. Let's have a listen in and see if he's fuel saving.
Not very much there that time.
Oh, it's negligible at best, isn't it, really? I think much bigger braking area coming down into Dunlop now as we descend down the hill. I'm not sure he is. To be honest, Randall, it sounds to me like he's still pushing hard to extend the wheel tracks of Clog.
Well, Clog's ran wide a few corners now, so he may be spilling blood.
Catching the gravel on the inside there on the exit out of Schumacher S's. Onto the brakes. And I tell you what, Clog is definitely nowhere near as confident over the curves compared to Schrinkler. It's been interesting watching their two lines. It's a lot more confident, clear cut, and, well, really chucking the car around from Schrinkler, whereas Clog is almost sort of tippy-toeing around and not hitting the apex as much as clinically as he could do.
Another interesting thing is, will Schwenkler try to overcut whenever Josh Clog pits, or will he follow it into the pits? Because if he thinks he's got a couple good laps left in those tires at the low fuel, he may be able to go an extra lap, maybe even 2, and extend that and maybe cover that gap on the overcut and then come out in front of him.
11 hundredths of a second separating the lap time between those two. Last time around, Schrenkler new fastest lap of the race, 2:02.71 from him.
You see Duranic rejoining the track here. Jake Ham has caught him. You also have to wonder about Jake Ham's fuel situation. He pit very early. I don't know if he had enough room in the tank to fill up to cover the rest of the race. So he may be able to go without stopping again if he's saving a little fuel.
I get the feeling he's going to have to stop again.
It was a very early pit. Very early.
It was on lap 2 to be precise. So 10th race distance. I'm not sure he's going to have enough fuel to see him home. It remains to be seen. We're not lap 12 out of 20. As far as just Erwin and Ham who've taken to the pits, but goes from bad to worse for Ham. Not only has he been at the back of the field trying to fight his way through, but now he's letting Duranic off at Dunlop there. He's now being caught by the leaders and about to be lapped by the cars that he was battling early on so hard with. I mean, it's so gutting and demoralising when you have that happen to you, isn't it, Randall?
It really is. It can really take the wind out of your sails, but you just need to bear down, set some good lap times, and know that the pit stops will help shake it out.
What's going to happen at those pit stops? It's going to be a really interesting one. Schrenkler doesn't sound like it and seem like he's fuel saving. Certainly anywhere near as possible as what he could. He just runs a bit wide into Coca-Cola. He can pick up the late apex there, try and drive the car out of the corner, but Clog is going to have a slipstream from Ham on the run down to M1.
That's right. Jake Ham does have enough pace that Josh Clog can kind of use him to either save a little fuel or just get a slipstream to get some good lap times in. But he doesn't want to mess around with him. He needs to get around him quickly and leave him for Mr. Schrenkler to deal with.
Well, let's not forget in iRacing, due to the blue flags, it's not like in Formula 1 where they have to jump out of the way as quick as possible. It is down, and it's in with the iRacing rules and code of conduct for the lead car to get past safely. Wow, that was a bit close there as he got past Ham and then tucked right in front of him onto the racing line. Clever stuff from Clog because he has managed to position a car between himself and Schrenkler.
It was a very gutsy move, pulling in front of somebody and then hitting the brakes hard.
It was. Well, for me, if that had been me, that would have ended in complete and utter disaster and being reported undoubtedly, but Clog, definitely a man who knows exactly what he's doing, what he's up to. As we on board with Schrenkler, 1.5 seconds now is the gap, and that's as big as we've seen it in quite a few laps, isn't it, really, Randall? Well, it's even extended out to 1.6, and as much as Ham isn't getting in the way lap time-wise, I think he's providing a bit of a mental distraction to our drivers.
That could definitely be the case. I tend to try to be more aggressive as we get to traffic if I'm not in the lead. Robert Schwenkler kind of let Josh Clog go as he was fighting with Jake Ham. We'll see how quickly
Clog's
Robert
in.
can get around. And as you
Clog's
said,
in.
Clog's in.
There you go. Our leader is into the pits.
Very smart timing to take advantage of a good situation here.
And Schrenkler, I don't know if you quite caught it there, a bit of a flash of the lights where he's trying to clear Ham. There you go, Ham has let him through. Nice pedal to the metal time for Schrenkler. Lap 14, out to 20. Really utilise that low fuel car that he has got. Running out a little bit wide there in the entry of the second part of Mercedes Arena. This is such a critical phase of the race right now for Schrenkler. He needs to utilise that car in its lowest possible weight and fuel because of it to eke out the best possible lap time, to get that jump on Clog, who he just, as much as he tries and gets close to him, just seems to be lacking that definitive edge to get the past him.
That's right. He's got nothing but clear track ahead of him now. He needs to set quality pace laps until he pits. This is where Lewis Hamilton, you'd be hearing the call for hammer time over the radio.
I was just about to say exactly the same thing, Randall. Exactly the same thing. As there is Clog out of the pits, fully fueled up. He was stationary for 12.9 seconds. Now, interestingly, that was slower than what Erwin had. He was stationary for 12.7 seconds, so 2 tenths quicker. And as much as those two aren't locked into a battle, obviously both drivers requiring basically the same amount of fuel to get themselves home and across the line come the end of lap 20. So, interesting one there from Clog. If Schrenkler can pull out something similar to Erwin, or even potentially take less fuel on,
Even if you're not active, even if you're not actively fuel saving, just being behind another car will save you some fuel. So we know that Josh Clogg's been in front for practically the whole race. That means he's been cutting the way.
Schenkel is carrying on again, and interestingly, not really pulling away from Ham. Might he have been better to sit behind Ham and just eke out a bit more fuel saving potentially?
Possibly. I think Schmeckler is faster than Ham, and Ham is getting the benefit of the slipstream that is allowing him to stay in contact, which is going to help him catch Duranic or possibly Irwin. I'm sorry, he already passed Duranic. Maybe he'll catch Irwin with this help. If I'm Robert Schwenkler, I'm running that until there's hardly any fuel left.
Literally left on fumes. Or maybe as Clog being, well, clever Clogs of the group and going that bit earlier on lap 13 to take his pit stop. We've got Sorum. He's into the place from 4th place. Just to see how his stop goes and where he manages to come out. Get to pit now, though, are Kia in 2nd and our leader, Schrenkler. You can see on your screens right now, when will they come in? Well, it's surely going to be, if not this lap, then definitely in the next. There is Mike Sorum into the pits for his enforced pit stop due to that 50% limit on the fuel capacity that the drivers have in each of their Aston Martin V8 Vantage GT4s. And while we've just got that pit stop going on, good chance to give a shout out to our sponsor for this series, Nexus Fab. Nexus Fabrication specialise in metal fabrication and manufacturing for commercial, residential and custom projects, as well as signage, furniture and metal repair work. You can find more about them and the great work that they do heading across to nexusfab.com.
While you were saying that, we saw Kevin Irwin has bended off the track, and now Jake Ham up to 5th place as Robert Schweikman gets to the pit.
Wow. And I tell you what, Irwin's into the pits again, so that's clearly damaged. Schrenkler, our leader, he's in now.
I'm trying to get the replay for Kevin Irwin.
Oh, no. So he's lost it on the entry into Warsteiner. Going a bit too much speed in.
Get in that gravel. You get in that gravel and you're going to arrive straight to the scene of the accident pretty pronto.
I'm not sure about yourself. If you ever managed to get up close and personal with a gravel trap, it looks like, it should be quite a solid, stable surface. It's not. It's like wading through treacle a little bit, and you can understand when the car sort of starts to dig in and behave a bit funnily. But there goes Clog. There's Schrenkler, and that is Clog back into the lead. He's done enough, and as they come through the Mercedes, and we'll get an update on exactly what the gap is, but Clog just runs in a bit too deep. Can Schrenkler come back towards him? Well, the gap's 1.2 seconds, so they pretty much will remain as they were before the round of pit stops.
I think Schwenkler was able to close in a couple tenths from that gap when Jake Ham got between them. But other than that, still holding station in 2nd place.
Well, I'll tell you what, just looking at the pit lane times there, Schrenkler was some good 2.5 seconds quicker than what Clog was, which says to me that while Schrenkler didn't have the best possible set of in laps compared to Clog's out laps. As we see Clog still in the lead over Schrenkler, who's going to be absolutely sick to the back teeth of looking at the rear end of that number 13 Aston Martin Vantage GT4. He's going to be dreaming about it tonight. He's seen it that many times. brake lights blinking off and on as he enters into each of the curves. Just heading out of Varsteiner, where we saw, of course, Kevin Irwin into the wall on the exit. He's still stationary in the pit box. I do wonder if that's the last we're going to see of Irwin. If that damage is a terminal for him, absolutely gutting for him. Duranic, he's upper place because of it, though. He's into 6th. So mentioned Jake Ham. It would have taken. Oh no, that's Schrenkler. So that's Duranic even. Sorry, I think a bit of an issue. That's Jake Ham just in front of him.
Looks like Jake was almost the innocent bystander this time in Duranic's incident, as we'll see here.
So it comes onto the brakes. All looks good. Carries in a little bit too much speed there, and that's what creates the issue. It takes him to the scene of the incident. It's back up. Ah, there you go. And that's that rejoin, trying desperately to get out of the way, but then in turn, almost ends up tripping over his competitors, as much as it was completely and utterly innocent there from Duranic.
That's what I always tell people: is getting out of the way is often getting in the way. So if you're not sure where the other car is, hold your brake and wait to rejoin. Keep an eye on that relative box.
There is Kia in the last of our official stoppers. That's incredibly late. That's 17 out of 20 here in Germany. And there is Sorum, who he's going to place Kia for a place on the podium. Kia's still stationary. We're going to watch Sorum fly past Kia. So that is a great set of outlaps even from Sorum, who stops on lap 14. The American really pushing hard, now up 2 places. Nice position gainer that we've got here today at the Nurburgring.
Clog's really trying to push it, but Schwenkler's reeling him in again. Schwenkler's in a really good position to put some pressure on the Josh Clog here, maybe force a mistake, coming to 3 laps to go this time around.
Just looking at those times in the standings and having a bit of think about stuff. He's done it once. Surely he can do it again, Randall. And open up that gap to be just enough as out of slipstream range and prevent some sort of dive bomb down into turn 1.
If you're Josh Clog, that's what you're hoping. The best thing you could do now is ignore your mirrors, hit your marks, and try to set as fast the lap times as you can.
There is our lead to the gap down to below 7 tenths of a second, even nearly 6 tenths. But it's there on the brakes. The Clog is definitely stronger. Wow. I was just about to say, it's on the brakes there into the entry into the Mercedes arena. The Clog is definitely stronger. The curse of the commentators are alive and kicking here in XSLR, because this should look like a constant, but Schrenkler again seems to be lacking that slight definitive edge to get the move done on Clog, who's making that Aston Martin about as wide as the track and some more on top of it.
It's very hard in Robert Schwenkler's position to not have dollar symbols for eyeballs right now. You need to keep it clean, keep it tidy. We saw it coming into the arena. He had a little touch of oversteer, had to throw some opposite lock to catch the car, and threw away some of that time he had made up in the slow section.
So we see Schrenkler really pushing hard right now. He knows the time is running out. We're on lap 18 out of 20. So they've completed this saw of the circuit. 3.2 miles, 5.1 kilometers. They will have 2 more laps left to them. Who is going to come out on top? Who's going to take that first victory of the season? I saw him in a really strong place for 3rd right now. He's got 6.7 seconds over Kia behind him. There is Sorum.
As long as he keeps it clean, he should be a shoe-in for the 3rd step of the podium.
I was trying to make some witty pun around his surname Sorums. That is,
and Clog off!
No. Oh, drama right to the end. This is going to bring Schrenkler right back into it. He has a lunge up the inside.
To the lead.
And Clog's going to have picked up a slowdown for that, hasn't he? And that's going to, wow, double jeopardy. Striking again here in XSLR, and Schrenkler, after not leading a lap, other than around the pit stops, now, first time proper in the lead. They are coming up onto a back marker. Let's take a look at the replay here.
Just a little too much speed.
A bit too keen mustard there, and didn't get the car slowed up in time. I think he just missed his braking marker, didn't he? The way he sailed on.
Yeah, it looked like he was trying to open that gap a little bit. It looks like if he got to slow down, he managed to serve it pretty quickly, and he's right on Robert Schwenkler's tail. Now it's Robert's turn to ignore the mirror.
It is indeed. 0.2, 0.3 of a second as they are coming up onto the lap car. That is Jonathon moving right out of the way of these two there. Just letting them by. Sensible stuff from Duranic. Very sportsmanlike. So we right on board with Clog. Onto the brakes. Brilliant. We're working the car now.
Now, since Josh Clog's been in the lead the whole race, he hasn't had a chance to really study Schwenkler from behind. He managed probably to do it a little bit in the mirrors, but he's not going to know exactly where he's faster than Schwenkler or where he might be able to set up a good move to catch Schwenkler sleeping.
This is the penultimate lap here at the Nurburgring round 1 of the XSLR Championship. Schwenkler has a margin of 0.2 of a second over Clog.
I think we're going to see him move into the chicane here.
Let's find out, Randall, because who's going to be last? The late breakers is Clog. Let's stay behind. He is biding his time. Well, I think he's trying to line up and move into turn 1, but has Schwenkler done enough while the gap closes once again? Because here comes Clog, hot on the tails of Schwenkler as they exit out of Coca-Cola corner. The white flag flies here in Germany. And we have got 1 lap remaining, and Schwenkler knows it. He goes hard against the wall there, not letting Clog through, not giving him half an inch, and that could be the race done and dusted there. Clog has got, whoa, no! Schwenkler just about holds on to it there, losing the rear end. He is, but can Clog hold on all the way around the outside? Because if he can do through this little part here, he's going to have the inside for the exit, and is he going to do it? This contact! And the sportsman thing there from Clog, waits for his competitor.
Good show.
Knows his fault. Wow, you cannot say fairer than that, can you?
That's great. That's great. You love to see that kind of thing, especially in league races.
You do. Wow, I take my hat off my cup to you, Josh Clog. You didn't have to do that. You could have gone about it. Some may argue in the dishonourable way. Some may argue rubbing is racing. But you waited for your competitor for what you felt was a dubious move, a bit of a push to pass in some ways. And Schwenkler still holds on 0.6, but this gap is closing. Now Clog has got 1 big opportunity. He's going to be brave, of course, into the chicane. That race to the line. There's 0.6 of a second. I think he's a bit too far back.
If Schwenkler has another mistake here and runs into the gravel again, he could be set up. But it looks like he keeps it nice and tidy.
It does indeed. But that gap is closing here, Randall, because it's 0.4. It's going to creep down into 0.3 on the run up to the chicane. The exit out of Coca-Cola order. That is where Clog can make up the time, or can he? As they bounce across the curves, 0.2 of a second. So for the last 20 laps is all that separates our top 2 right now. And Clog going for that late apex, but he's running out a little bit too deep. And I think Schwenkler's going to hold on to this, but it's going to be an absolute race for the line. So we got down from the helicopter, a 10th of a second, and that is all that covers our top 2 here in Germany in the XSLR Championship. Schwenkler takes the first victory of the season. A 10th of a second over Clog. Wow, Randall.
We're going to take a look at this again from Josh Clog's perspective. See, he's on the outside here through the very slow left-hander, and he gets a touch of oversteer. It looks like both drivers manage a touch of oversteer. Josh Clog was pointing to the left, and Schwenkler was pointing to the right. They just come together. It's really hard to assign blame there. It just looks like a racing incident. But Josh Clog doing the right thing and waiting and trying to do it cleanly.
Well, this, I tell you what, the last podium position, we've been so engrossed in the lead, this is up for grabs still. Kia closing in on Sorum in the line seconds here, and oh no,
Just a
Kia
little
getting a
wiggle.
bit loose, and I think that's it. That's going to hand Sorum third place. Wow. What a finish. And I tell you what, the cars aren't real, but the racing most certainly is. And it is alive and well in the XSLR Championship. Let's take you through your Class 5 results here for round 1 of Season 4 of the XSLR Championship. Robert Shankler taking the victory from Josh Clogg. Mike Sorum picking up that last podium position, but only just James Kia couldn't quite hold it together. That slide out of Coca-Cola corner just costing him dearly. And it means he has to settle for 4th. Jake Ham, wow. If it hadn't been for that slowdown, that incident, just where would he have come? He would have been there fighting at the top. In the end, finishes a lap down. Duranic, 6th place. And unfortunately, Erwin retired all the way back on lap 14. I'm going to wait and see if any of our drivers have a bit of a pop in, but let's have a bit of a chat first off to our race victor, picking up the first victory of the season. Robert Schrankler joins us. Well, that wasn't quite as easy as what it may have looked to some. What a victory from yourself, Robert.
Yeah, that was quite the gift, I think. I'm not sure what happened with Josh. I know he had that one off through the chicane, got to slow down. I'm surprised he let me go back by because I was totally blocking him, I'll admit. So, yeah, happy to take the victory for sure.
And just to take us through the race, I mean, the start was a bit fraught, and then the gap between yourself and Clogg, all the way up to the pit stops, it was shrinking and then expanding again. Anywhere between, I think, 0.6 all the way up to 1.6 seconds. Were you fuel saving and trying to put that into your strategy, or was it just hell for metal and trying desperately stay on the back of Clogg?
Yeah, I was just trying to hang on to the back of him. I knew he was faster than me, and I was just trying to push, and mental mistakes is what was opening the gap back up. I tried to get back out in front of him on the pit stop, and I might have if I hadn't have had that little off there on my in lap. I think that cost me coming out in front of him anyway. But yeah, I mean, just my start was horrible. My launch was atrocious, and so those guys just went flying by me. After that, like, it was just trying to keep up with the Clogg and Ham. I'm not sure what happened with Ham there. I know he kind of, I think, spun around or something, but just trying to hang on to the back of Clogg the best I could because I knew he was faster. So.
Next week we head to Long Beach, a very different circuit and a different set of challenges. Are you looking forward to it, or is it a circuit you love? It's a bit of a circuit that you either love or hate, and there's no middle ground with it.
I enjoy it. I think it's a fun track. It's definitely technical, and if you screw it up, you are gonna pay. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we have a bigger turnout next week, and there's more racing.
Well, definitely, we're looking forward to it. Before we let you go, Robert, anyone you want to give a shout out to us all?
Big shout out to you guys and Adam Thompson for not only doing the broadcast here, but Adam does a lot to run the league. So big shout out to him. Friends and family watching. Big shout out to my girlfriend Frankie for putting up with my hobby here. And yeah, looking forward to next week.
I definitely look forward to seeing then. That's Robert Schrankler picking up the first victory of the season here at the Nurburgring. Now, Randall, I understand you're standing by with what's going to be an incredibly happy man. And he picks up the last podium place, Mike Sorum.
Well, hi guys.
Hey Mike, great race. Congratulations on 3rd place. Tell us a little bit about that battle at the end with Mr. Keir.
Oh man, I am sweating right now. Toward the beginning, probably the first 10 laps I spent fiddling with my controls to try to get my fuel figured out and right. I probably only had 20 laps around this track. I'm a little rusty. I didn't really practice in the off season, so trying to figure it out as I went. And then toward the end there, In the beginning, James, I was keeping up with him a little bit, and then I'm fiddling with my controls, just let him get away, and I figured maybe I'll get him in the pits or something. And I thought that maybe he took tires or something. I was surprised to find myself in third after his pit stop, and he told me at the end of the race he did get a speeding in pits penalty. So then, man, I thought I was, in the clear, and every lap he was just gaining and gaining and gaining, and toward the end there, the last few corners, all I could do was defend as hard as I could.
We saw your defensive entry into the last corner, and then Kier had a little bit of a wiggle. How big of a sigh of relief did you let out whenever you saw that in your mirror?
When I saw in the mirror that he wasn't gonna blow past me on the straight, that was great. Woo!
Well, it's great to watch. Congratulations again. Anybody you'd like to shout out?
Well, yeah, slow motion broadcasting, the broadcasters, obviously Shear Salon, XSLR, the league, all the other sponsors, and everyone who's watching. This league is a blast, and I'm excited to start the new season with a podium.
Great job. We look forward to seeing you out there next week.
All right, thanks. We'll hope to see you again in the interview booth.
And that was Mike Sorm. I'll hand you back to Tim Cox.
Wow, great to hear from a couple of our drivers there and how they got on during the race. But wow, despite the small grid, it definitely delivered on action here today for us, Randall. We were not short of it. I mean, what was your favourite moments, or maybe your take-home moments from round one?
Yeah, I really expected this to be a 7-car kind of safety bubble race where everybody was really spread out and wouldn't have much to talk about, but that really turned out to be untrue. Saw a lot of fireworks, especially towards the end of the race. And my memorable moment is definitely going to be with Josh Clogg doing the sporting thing and letting Robert Schwenkler get back on track so they can battle it out cleanly.
And yeah, it's definitely been another classic from the XSLR Championship. Wow, what a race it has been here in Germany. We get to do it all again in a week's time if there's not been enough action for yourself. Coming up on the channel, we've got the XTC Championship Season 2, Round 2 from them. That is on tomorrow night. Then we've got WSLR, the Spec 5 World Tour, of course the Miatas. That's been some absolutely epic action for them. Round 10 for them is up next. Before we are back here on Slow Motion Broadcasting for round 2 of season 4 of the XSLR Championship. I've been Tim Cox with Randall McGrew. Jonathon Grabowski has been working the magic in the production booth. We'll see you in a week's time when we head to Long Beach.